Welcome back to another live analysis of Bitcoin and Ethereum. So starting off on the monthly chart with Bitcoin, we've clearly been in an uptrend for quite some time, and we're now at the area of interest, which is the monthly fair value gap. So having swept the previous quarterly high, I then had a change in state of delivery on the weekly, which we'll get to in a moment. I was looking for price to basically just rotate internally towards this monthly fair value gap. So keeping it super simple, we've been in an uptrend, right? Until such time that we invalidate this structure, which would be closing beneath this. And then, yeah, we got to just assume that we are still bullish. Now, here's the thing. Quarter four of the fourth year of the Bitcoin cycle is typically the top, which is why I sold at 120K on a 12-hour unicorn model. But I did shift some of those profits into Ethereum and Link checks as a speculative play on the idea that even if this is the top, we're going to get a bounce here, right? If we just blast at this level, then we'll have a different conversation about that. But we should at the very least get a bounce, and that bounce is what I think all we need to send things like Ethereum, Link, these things to have a massive pump. So that's been the plan for quite some time. It's this initial bump, or rather bounce. Look, if we continue higher, fantastic. We're going to have an incredible, and I don't even want to say alt season. I think the idea of alt season is outdated because it assumes that all altcoins are going to pump. I don't think that's the case any longer. And I've been saying this since February earlier this year, probably a little earlier. That there's a new paradigm in this space, right? You got to focus on utility, you got to focus on value. Vaporware doesn't just. Sure, you get your scam pumps here and there. That's still possible, but I think we're about to get a wave of money into this space like we've never seen before. So I'm very hopeful. Whether that happens now in months, God, who knows? Maybe even years. I'm not sure. I think it's sooner than we think. But ultimately, when you're looking at technology that's going to change the face of, or rather the back end of the financial system, it's going to take time. And you got to wait for the powers that be, traditional finance to get positioned. I mean, these guys have only had access to this space since 2021 when the Bitcoin ETF launched, later than the Ethereum ETF. We've obviously just had Solana and Link ETFs and so on being filed for going live or something around that. I think Solana is live. I'm not too sure about Link. Maybe that was another top signal. But the thing is, it's going to take time. We need to be patient. Anyway, so my point is, whether we continue from this point higher or we just bounce, that's all we need. At the least is a bounce for things like Ethereum and so on. Right? So here we are. We're at the monthly level. Now, the other areas of interest that I've been pointing out. I mean, look at this on the weekly. I'm sorry, but if this is bearish to you, yes, we've swept those highs. But when we have a one-sided delivery into a high time frame PDA, such as a monthly fair value gap, as well as the yearly open, which is I think 90. It's around 94K. Right, yearly open is that side. It's about there. We also got this weekly fair value gap. So here's the thing, right? With about 2 weeks left of November, we don't want to see November close beneath this fair value gap, right? That's a sign of weakness, and that's not what we want to see. So at the very least, the 0.5, right, the midpoint of this fair value gap, right? That's a sign of strength. You can see we're already bouncing off that point. So here's the thing. What is completely permissible is if we consolidate for a bit here, maybe even drop lower, right? Maybe even the weekly drops into this. My point is, this is also a CME gap at 92,000, by the way. If we do, we need an immediate bounce, such that by the time November closes, we're back up here. And if this becomes a wick, fantastic. The wicks do the damage, the bodies tell the narrative. Focus on the close. So And here's the thing. We've had 3 weeks of downside price action. Typically after three, 4, 5, you get a change in the state of a different phase of price, right? So obviously here we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we had a whole bunch. And eventually you need to, after you've expanded, you're going to consolidate and or retrace before continuation, right? Expansion, you can call this a retrace because it's taking a lot of time to just basically go, not that far. As opposed to this expansion, I mean, in the space of a few weeks, you went from 74,000 up to 111, whereas here you went 111 to 98 or so, and around about the same amount of time. So my point is that we've had just one-sided price action straight into this monthly. We can expect a new phase of price, and that could be, we could consolidate here. And I mean, you wouldn't really want to see consolidation here. You want to see things move quickly. I mean, we're on the weekly chart here, right? A consolidation would take literally weeks. And if we were to, wick lower, then close above, wick lower and close above, I guess you could call that consolidation, but I guess if price doesn't really move, then that's fine. The main point really at the end of the day is that, if we see lower levels, I would like to see the yearly open retested. But, if we do test these, 92,000 with the CME gap, I want to see that close above. So when we look at because I'm using the monthly chart as my high time frame, so I'll then go to the daily. So just quickly for those who weren't or haven't watched the previous videos, this was a change in the state of delivery once we had swept the previous quarterly high up here, which is why I was calling for these lower levels for literally weeks now. And I'm not going to lie, it was pretty tough to hold this. But the thing is, this is the only area I was interested in price again, right? So I've got one short open. Obviously, I sold Bitcoin at 120. I'm in 65% cash, probably more now without splitting. And I've got one short position in case I'm completely wrong, right? So the point being is that I'm only interested in price at this level. So there was nothing for me to do up until we got here. Now we're here, so I'm active. So, okay, so looking at this on the daily, right, we're inside this monthly fair value gap. Now, what I really like about this area is that we had this inducement, which is to say that price came down and stopped just above this point of interest. Right, traded back up into this daily fair value gap, and then just a one-side delivery. So let's just put up another vertical line here for Sunday. So that's the weekly close, right? So also again, it'd be great to see us close above this point, because that's the daily. We'll close above there. We'll also get a weekly. And the thing is, if we consolidate here on the daily, fantastic. Then wick lower and then bounce and then close up here going into the new month, fantastic. Or even ideally, we consolidate, wick lower, come back up, start the month, wick lower, take out the previous month lower, then pump. There's a few things that price could do. The point is you just got to sit back and be patient and just wait to see, because the market will show its hand. That's the thing. This is, at least for the model that I use, I've got my bias, I've got structure, and then I've got confirmation. The confirmation is what tells you, okay, you can enter. Like your biases and structure is confirmed. It's valid. Let's go. So when it comes to structure, we've got the hard time frame bias here with the monthly, which is turning to the outside. We're now on a monthly fair value gap. When we look at structure, this is my only hesitation. Right? We don't have, yes, we got this low resistance liquidity, but there's no swing highs here. So you can't really call this residual highs. You could, this isn't too relative, at least not for my liking. But again, we do have these swing failures. So, and there is an efficiency. So that's the two things I look for in terms of structure. And what structure specifically? Well, the first side of a curve of a market maker model. I need to see accumulation. Sorry, I need to see liquidity and inefficiency, and I've got both those things. I would have preferred to have seen, equal highs, relative highs, but these swing failures would do. And again, this is why I'm also inclined to believe that, we could potentially just see a bounce and you don't see a delivery all the way to all-time highs. And again, Bitcoin only needs to bounce here and pump to these levels for altcoins to do, to perform really well. So yeah, right now at this point, we're just sitting back and waiting to see what price does. Worst case scenario, we don't want to see closes down here. Although if that is the case, we then just focus on the monthly. But with the weekly, the weekly, if it closes past this level here, wouldn't be ideal, but still not the end of the world, because you've got the yearly open and you've got this fair value gap over here. So not the end of the world, but it's if we do get a close beneath that, it is, it's not a great look. But then again, you just got to look for the monthly, and of course the monthly is a much higher time frame than the weekly. So yeah, it's a time to be patient, but not a time to become apathetic or step away. This is a time to focus. This is a time to lock in. A lot of people are very active in the market as it starts trending lower, and then when it comes to the time what really matters, they're just mentally and emotionally drained. Okay, so that's Bitcoin, right? So I'm bullish until proven otherwise, but I'm waiting for confirmation. So when we look at Ethereum, let's get into it. So anybody who's been watching any of my videos for months now knows that I'm very bullish on Ethereum for multiple different reasons. In fact, let's just go to the CME chart, because this is one that this is where my bias is really coming from. There's the all-time high on the futures charts. There are the lows. The lows have been swept. We've got relative highs here. There's all-time highs. We've got a relative highs here. You've also got a nice CME gap there. You've also got a volume imbalance there. And right now we've just traded back into this essentially a balanced price range, because there's a gap here, then a gap in the opposite direction. So you can wick down, but we want to see the body of this monthly at least close above the 0.5 of this gap. Now here's the thing: when you go to, that was with balance adjusted. Without balance adjusted, you still took it out previous yearly low over here. And you still have, look at that. Now that's basically equal highs. With an expansion like this, and then a pullback into a monthly fair value gap, excuse me, I'm expecting these highs to get taken out. In addition to the fact that, let's just go to the other charts. So this for me is a unicorn model, right? So at the start of the year, price opened and immediately went down to take out those lows. Previous yearly lows taken out, previous monthly, quarter, the whole lot. Yes, we did take out that level. But for my model, if there's a reversal, I need at least 2 sweeps of the high. Now, the thing is, Bitcoin did take out this high. So there is this SMT, but it's the futures chart that I'm using. Coupled with the fact that the macroeconomic conditions, we're in a low interest rate environment, and Ethereum always outperforms Bitcoin in those environments. So maybe this was the market front running that, but rate cuts are still going on. They're still happening. Quantitative tightening is ending in the 1st of December, which lines up coincidentally with which are the time levels that we've been looking at on Bitcoin. So something to take into consideration there. So yeah, looking back at this monthly, low, high, low, low break. This is a breaker block. Use the swing lows to the swing high just to keep it safe. This whole area, and if you really wanted to, we could just go to this, and there it's bouncing at that 0.5 of that breaker block. Love to see it. So there's a fair value gap inside of that breaker block. So there's a low, high, low, low, and then you break through it. This is a breaker block, right? And what makes it a unicorn, not just a normal breaker block, unicorn includes time. Did you sweep low time frame and a high time frame since the opening level? Yes, we did. At the yearly open, we then swept out a high time frame, low time frame. We then validated that breaker block with a fair value gap through that. We also inverted this monthly level, which we could even go retest, and would still be within this fair value gap. So yeah, the way I see it, even if this were to not take out the highs, you're going to get a bounce here. You've taken out a previous month low, you're in a monthly fair value gap, you're in a monthly breaker block, you're at the yearly open. I think there's a CME gap in here on the low time frames. There is every reason to be bullish here. There's no reason to be bearish, is basically the main message here. So let's drop down from the weekly. We'll go down to the 4-hour chart. In fact, we'll just go down. No, we're in the monthly, sorry. So we'll go down to the daily. And so what I've been speaking about, and look how that level's been respected. I spoke about earlier this week when one of the members in the community asked me what are my thoughts on the price action on Monday. And I said, look, we are pumping at the start of the week on bullish stimulus news, which is also a catalyst for liquidity in the markets, as the stimulus checks and so on. In addition to quantitative easing. So we started the week, we just pumped into, on bullish news, we pumped into resistance. Asked, the member asked me, is 94K still on the table? I said 100%. What I would like to see though, and this is the point I'm trying to get to, is that I wanted to see Bitcoin take out the low, but Ethereum make a higher low, which is exactly what we're doing at the moment. So you can see that Bitcoin's clearly taking out these lows. Whether that holds or not is yet to be seen. But here's the thing, if I look on the daily, if we reverse from this level, because technically this level has been swept, you've got this is your confirmation. Look, it'll be actually quite lovely if we trade back into the zone. Another up close candle, come and sweep this low, but not that. You still have the SMT. Then you've just got a lower point of invalidation. Sorry, a lower point of confirmation. If we get something like this, that's where you could, And here's the thing, right? When I obviously we've spoken about bias now on the monthly. I'm bullish, clearly. Now I look for structure, and this is what I love on Ethereum, is that you got all these relative highs. Now, bearing in mind, you've got the CME futures basically equal highs at the all-time high. You've got, these all-time high over here. You've got equal highs, relative highs, and inefficiencies for days. Right? I need to see a smart memory reversal here, which will confirm to me this is the market maker bar model. This is accumulation. Accumulation of what? It's the market makers accumulating long positions where everybody's selling off. The market's selling off. Who's the counterparty? It's the market makers. They are long. Right, this is why I'm bullish down here, because there is absolutely no reason for them to go lower unless to sweep these lows where they are pairing orders and discounts. So they've been accumulating long positions while the market's selling off. They're going to accumulate at, they'll be in a net long position at this point in discounts. Then the market will start to trade to the upside. And as the market requires buy-side liquidity, who is there to sell to them? It's the market makers. So yeah, I'm bullish. But of course, I need that confirmation. That's the third part of my model. And that is encapsulated in time. And of course, we have... And remember, my bias comes from the monthly. So time that I'll be using comes from the monthly. So once this new monthly candle opens, well, this current closes, the new one opens, I want to see one of two things. Either we've already confirmed the low time frame confirmation model on the daily, right? Which then we should see a nice wick on the monthly candle. And then that means that I expect the next monthly to open, create the wick, and then just pump, right? Or we consolidate, open the new month, sweep the low, and then make that work, and then get the confirmation model. So yeah, that's the analysis on Bitcoin and Ethereum. stay tuned. I'll be doing a lot more, frequent analysis now that we're in the zone of interest. I'm going to be way more active. So yeah, please like, subscribe. I'll see you guys then. Cheers.